Okay, terrific. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this program, part of Vanderbilt Law School. You've probably seen a lot of videos from different schools talking about their schools. We thought it might be helpful to take a few minutes to offer our perspective on how you might want to think about navigating law school wherever you go to law school. And we hope that that might be helpful to you and we can add a little bit of value to your time here today. I'm Christopher Serkin. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Vanderbilt Law School. I also teach property and land use law, among other topics. I'm joined here by three of my colleagues. Yesha Yadav, she's a professor of law, Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Community. She writes about cutting-edge business law issues like high-frequency algorithmic trading and teaches securities regulation, corporate bankruptcy, and other classes. Rogal is the Associate Professor of Clinical Law. She runs the Turner Family Community Enterprise Clinic, which represents nonprofits and startups and gives students an opportunity to engage in direct client representation while in law school. And J.B. Ruhl, who's the David Daniels Allen Distinguished Chair in Law. He's the director of the Program on Law and Innovation here at the law school. He's the co-director of the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Program. He's an expert on environmental law and teaches some wildly popular classes, including Food Law and Law 2050 on the future of the legal profession. It's an exciting panel to have a chance to talk to you all today about your law school careers, your impending law school careers. And I thought I'd open with just a few remarks and then hand it over to the others. And we're going to have a free-form conversation with some of our observations for you. So in my experience teaching, people come to law school for a lot of different reasons. It may be a deep, abiding interest or commitment to issues of social justice. It may be out of an interest in the law. It may be for lack of other good opportunities right now, or for economic reasons. There are a lot of reasons to come to law school. You're going to have a very diverse set of interests arriving here. But I think that a lot of students arrive at law school and feel like the project for them right away is to figure out what subject matter interests them the most. That is, they navigate through the first year and think, well, I really liked property law more than I expected, or I really like torts, or I really like criminal law. And they take from that experience that this is what should shape their careers. And I want to step back and suggest that this choice of, say, subject matter or class may not be the most important dimension for affecting or determining your overall professional satisfaction. And I want to suggest that maybe you should come to law school with sort of parallel goals in mind for the 3 years that you will have, which will go by very quickly. So one, you are absolutely trying to develop the tools and knowledge that will make you an effective attorney in any setting. That is the fundamental project of learning in law school. But I think you should simultaneously be trying to learn what it is that will provide you as an individual with a satisfying and rewarding professional life. And that second goal of law school may be a little bit less obvious. And it turns out, right, that there are a lot of different dimensions to what it is that might make for a rewarding professional life after law school. So it may be that subject matter really matters to you. It may be that you've come to law school because you're deeply interested in immigration and you want to be working on immigration law. Terrific, right? If that's you, that's fantastic. And you may find a topic that captures your interest and engagement that way. But for many of you, certainly true for me, I didn't come to law school with a particular subject matter that interested me. And indeed, I think the factors that determine my satisfaction in a professional setting have nothing to do with subject matter. Here are some of the choices that you might face. So do you prefer working in a collaborative or an adversarial setting? Do you like working alone or do you like working in teams? Do you enjoy the time pressure that comes from very exciting of the moment work, or do you prefer opportunity for more reflection? Um, is it important to you to be doing socially meaningful work, or is that something that you may choose to find elsewhere outside of your professional life? Is it important to you where you live, who you work with? Does it matter to you that you like your colleagues, for example? I would submit it probably should, but everyone is different. Once you expand thinking about your professional lives to include these other dimensions, one way to think about law school is as a kind of smorgasbord where your job is to have as many different kinds of experiences as possible across as many different dimensions as possible, and to reflect periodically on what it was that you enjoyed over those last few months and what it was that you really didn't enjoy and why. You might discover that you love being in a library working on the intellectual stuff of law. You may discover that you really didn't like it that much, and what you prefer is the sort of rough and tumble of moot court, for example, and really arguing on your feet, or some combination. Think of law school as an opportunity to encounter as many different settings as possible. So if you think of curricular choice as just picking between, gee, corporate law or criminal law or sec reg, and all of the classes you choose from are basically different topics, but the same format, I think you're missing an opportunity to really explore everything law school has to offer. So that's how I wanted to frame things. I'll invite my colleagues to certainly respond to that if they want, but otherwise I will turn this over to Yesha for her opening remarks here.
Thank you so much, Chris. My name is Yesha Yadav, and I'm a professor of law here at Vanderbilt. I teach in the area of corporate and securities regulation, and I'm associate dean for diversity, equity, and community. Now, as Chris said, law school is an adventure. It's where you come to discover what you like, and we hope that when you come, that you will take advantage of the incredible curricular offerings that we have at Vanderbilt. I want to say a few words about living and being a law school student. That's a complicated, interesting, exciting, bewildering time in your life. It's one where you will meet an extraordinary number of incredible people who will stay with you for the rest of your life. You will build networks that are so lasting that they will be with you in your professional as well as personal careers. And we hope that you will interact and develop connections with your professors that will enrich your life as lawyers, as law students, and as people. But one thing that I think is really important is to be a human being at law school. We come and we have to represent like we know everything. We're so smart. There's so much competition. It's a leading law school. But we at Vanderbilt really want you to be happy, to feel like you belong, to be able to make the most of who you are as a person, and to really feel like you're home. Law school is a challenging time. There's no question about it. Studies are hard. You're taking notes. You're competing with folks. You are looking for jobs. You're finding out who you are. And in between all of those different questions that you need to answer, we want you to be happy, healthy, mentally and physically, and to feel like you can count on your colleagues, your professors, the staff here who are incredible, to make you feel like you have a support system to help you navigate all of these different challenges that you're likely to face. So, as professors, I think something that we take great pride in is our commitment to our students. We are very, very deeply engaged in the vocation of teaching. I see all of my colleagues be super stressed before classes because they want to make sure that every class is fantastic. I see our professors devoted to mentoring students, to writing letters of recommendations for our students. It is a real big part of who we are as a law school, that our commitment to teaching is absolute. In addition and beyond that, at the Diversity Equity Community Office, we're extremely committed to making sure that your lives as law students are as enriched and as fulfilling and as inclusive and diverse and fabulous as possible. We want you really, 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 truly, deeply, madly here to feel at home. And one thing that we're really proud of at Vanderbilt, and I think my colleagues here in this conversation will echo that, is the culture that we have, which is extremely collegial, which is very civil, which is very supportive. And that's a culture that we're extremely proud of and that we seek to foster and develop and enrich every chance that we get. So we're thrilled that you're considering us. We're delighted that you're here. Please do get in touch with us with your questions. We're always happy to answer them.
Yesha, let me ask you a question if I can. It's very helpful. Do you think students should work to help constitute the kind of culture that they want when they're in law school, wherever they are? We hope it's Vanderbilt, of course. But how can law students, do you think, retain that sense of themselves as human beings and not just law students as they go through this very challenging 3 years?
It's a challenge that I think all of us face in our lives, right? Which is balancing the personal with the professional, which is manifesting who we are and being ourselves and not feeling afraid of that, as well as obviously navigating the bounds of a professional environment in which we find ourselves. And I think that, one of the things that you can do as a law student is work to be the very best version of yourself. And be in a culture that allows you to do that and to expand on your potential and your personality. And I think doing that as a person, taking advantage of the opportunities that you have, provides a way into developing a culture that also allows others to do the same. And I think as a student, what you can do is focus on the goal of experimenting, trying who you are, being the best of yourself, taking advantage of the opportunities, as well as obviously, I think, encouraging your colleagues and friends to do that as well. One thing that I hear, and certainly my experience at law school, is that students can be very competitive with one another, but it doesn't have to be that way. The pie is not necessarily as small as you think it is. The pie can actually be enlarged and grown. And I think it's helpful if you come at law school with a perspective of openness and sharing and generosity, of opportunities and your personality and your insights, not hide the ball in class, but share it. And I think that contributes to a culture of openness and comfort with one another as people and as law students.
That's really helpful and interesting, I think. Lauren, do you want to offer some thoughts on law school?
Sure. I think this is an incredibly interesting as well as challenging time to be embarking on a law school career. We live in very dynamic times in our country and the world, and you're entering a very dynamic profession where you're going to be intersecting with a lot of the issues that you might be devoting a lot of time to these days. Racial justice, economic inequality, political polarization. So I do encourage you to start thinking about how your legal career is going to touch upon and intersect with those issues. And as you are thinking through what your law school career is going to look like, I strongly, strongly encourage you to take a good and searching look at the experiential opportunities provided by the law school. How broad are they? How deep are they? How many trajectories do they facilitate for your areas of interest? And to immerse yourself in, as many legal practice environments and possibilities as you can. This is really the only way to figure out what you're going to like, not just on a theoretical subject matter level, but also you're going to get up in the morning and you're going to go to work and you're going to do what, and are you going to enjoy it, right? Do you want to be doing negotiations? Do you want to be doing research and drafting? Do you want to be interfacing immediately with clients? A lot lot of lawyers do, a lot of lawyers don't. Right. And so these are all very different sort of work environments, and they're going to facilitate different types of legal career experiences, and depending on who you are and what your priorities are, different levels of satisfaction. So we have one thing we're really proud of at Vanderbilt is the range and the depth of the experiential education opportunities that we offer. And what I mean by that term is those are opportunities to cultivate lawyering skills and apply your knowledge in a practical setting. And they are all taught or facilitated by experienced attorneys who have been in the trenches. So I teach in our clinical program. I teach a transactional clinic when we work with nonprofit organizations, startup businesses, underserved entrepreneurs, worker cooperatives, a whole range of different types of clients and different types of matters. We have 7 clinics at the law school, including a brand new housing law clinic, which was just inaugurated this semester, very timely given the likely avalanche of evictions that are about to descend upon us as soon as moratoriums are lifted. But we have just a huge range. We have a criminal practice clinic, an immigration practice clinic, an intellectual property in the arts clinic, which is a sort of unique Nashville-oriented opportunity given the scope of the arts community here. We have a First Amendment clinic. We have a youth opportunity clinic where students have the opportunity to intervene in the lives in a positive way of young people who are at risk of criminal justice involvement. And all of these clinical opportunities involve a direct representation of human beings, of clients, under the supervision of a clinical professor who's experienced, but is going to sort of take a non-directive approach and allow you to just sort of determine the trajectory of your client representation. It's really a lot more control and a lot more decision-making authority than even a lot of first and second year associates have. So it's, that's really exciting opportunities. And at Vanderbilt, we take a lot of steps to ensure that every interested student has the opportunity to have a clinical semester. So that's one variant of experiential opportunity that you definitely should think about. We also offer an enormous range of externships for academic credit, which can be done during the summer or during a semester. And this could involve working with judges, working within the criminal system, either in the DA's office or for public defenders, in-house at the legal departments of corporations, nonprofit legal service providers. It's in a very, very extensive list, and it's an opportunity to really choose and design your own legal experience. And we also have practicum courses, that involve simulated trials and negotiations. We have pro bono experiences, provide summer funding for students to do public interest law. So these are opportunities that I strongly encourage you to take advantage of as you go into law school, including the ones that are not in areas that you necessarily sort of intuitively think are a fit for you. I teach a sort of transactional business-oriented clinic. So students don't necessarily always intuitively connect that to social justice, but we just oversaw the first worker cooperative conversion in the state of Tennessee, right? Which does a lot for economic equality and opportunity. So I encourage you to keep an open mind and think about what trajectories are available. Does the environment facilitate optionality? Changing your mind is really important as you start on your legal career, and seize these opportunities to immerse yourself.
That's really exciting. I might have a follow-up question in a minute, but JB, why don't you give us your sense of how to think about navigating law school?
Sure, thanks. So I'll pick up on a theme that Lauren mentioned, that not only is the world changing so much, and lawyers can be very valuable in shaping what our future looks like, but the legal profession itself is undergoing change unlike in the past. I'll just give you a personal background to sort of drive that home. So I practiced law for 12 years before going into teaching. 4 of those years as a partner. I worked all those 12 years with a very, very large international law firm. It's still one of the largest law firms in the world. And basically, the model was you went to a law school like Vanderbilt, you showed up, you did good work, and you made partner, and nothing changed really. Law firms got bigger, slightly more diverse, made more money, but the basic model and was fixed. That changed dramatically in the Great Recession. There were forces that were already putting pressure on how law firms operated and how lawyers operated. But the Great Recession put a tremendous amount of pressure on that model. Technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning came into use in legal settings. Innovation within the way clients interacted with their law firms, like fixed fees instead of billable hours. Access to justice became both more important because we realized we were failing to provide adequate access, not just for low income, but middle income. Average people can't afford a lawyer. And then simply the reality that although this is a profession, if you go to work for a law firm or a general counsel of a company or an agency, it's a business. And that means that you are, when you enter the profession as a young lawyer, you are seen as a value proposition. And you have to bring value to the table right away. And the way you do this, among others, is, develop expertise. And you can start doing that. You should start doing that in law school, but also understanding how law is a business and how you can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your employer. And think of yourself as a business, right? So we at Vanderbilt and many other law schools have done this. We developed some curriculum around this program on law and innovation that would help you land at your employer, and if it's a law firm, land at that law firm ready to deliver value, ready to develop expertise, ready to contribute to the enterprise, much more so than I was ever expected or equipped to do as a young associate. So we have courses here, for example, on legal project management, law as a business, legal problem solving, human-centered design thinking, leadership, blockchain, like using all of that curriculum to help you. And we hope that our Vanderbilt grads are ready to go when they land at their employer's business. And if you're working for an NGO, NGOs have to be mindful of efficiency and getting the job done and using technology effectively. So I would advise you when you make your law school decision, your selection decision, be sure you check out the law school. Are they attuned to the change in the industry? Are they delivering courses that you could take, and I think you should take at least some of them, that will allow you to not just show up, as I was able to do and just do good work, but show up and contribute to the enterprise. That is one, it's changing. And I'll just close by saying that I still have many friends from my practice days and through the courses I teach here who are leaders of large law firms, general counsel office, NGOs. They are very receptive to ideas that you will bring to the table for change. They are very receptive, unlike my senior partners were when I was a young associate, didn't want to hear about it, right? Why change anything? Everything's working. But I think you'll find that, and I almost envy today's law students, you'll find that it's very exciting. It's a little scary because nothing's as stable as it was, but you can be part of that change. And so I encourage you to think about that the day you walk into law school.
That's really interesting. So I think one of the hardest adjustments for many students in law school is to realize that the enterprise here is not to be sort of passive recipients of lots of facts or lots of laws, right? It's not that you're trying to learn what is the statute of limitations for a breach of contract in New York, right? What you're trying to learn is, what's a statute of limitations? Why is that a thing that should matter? How should we think about this? And I always find, JB, that there's a sense of sort of disorientation in a lot of students as they try and get their sea legs and get comfortable with all of the uncertainty. When we layer on top of that uncertainty, uncertainty about what's happening to law generally, what choices do you think students have available to them, or how should they be deliberate in navigating law school to have the sort of the meta skills that will allow them to operate in with so much uncertainty?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's uncertainty on top of uncertainty. But I think that um, you only need so much sort of doctrine before you get the idea that, hey, what's important is that I understand what a statute of limitations is, right? And that's very important in your first year to get that foundation. But I think I would suggest that in your upper level course selections, look for a course that's equipping you to be a lawyer, not just to know law, know more law. Clinics, legal project management, which doesn't teach you about doctrine, it teaches you how to manage legal projects like a case, a client matter. These were never even, I don't think anyone even dreamed of offering these courses when I went to law school, and I'm dating myself, but even 10 years ago, courses like this didn't exist. And not all law schools are on board yet, but more and more are. I think you'll find that there's something out there at most law schools that touches on this. We've made a pretty deep commitment here at Vanderbilt. We have a pretty wide variety of courses taught by adjuncts, and also our director of innovation, Kat Moon, offers fantastic courses, wildly popular, because I think students get that there's not just uncertainty of what's law, but how am I going to go do this is much different than it was in the past. And I think it's exciting. But yeah, so be sure that you don't just that you don't leave law school having just sort of jammed doctrine into your head. Take the clinics, take innovative classes, and that's, I think, an important new dimension to law school.
So one of the things you said, JP, that raises a question for me for Lauren. You commented, and I think astutely, that a lot of this is scary. One of the things you confront when you arrive in law school is how much there is to learn. And at the same time that a legal education is profoundly empowering, there's also a sense in which it can be disempowering as you confront the limits of your knowledge. So, Lauren, I hear you describe the clinical opportunities and encouraging students to take clinics. The idea that a second-year law student, after only a year of law school, can go and represent real people engaged in or involved in conflicts or problems that are going to determine a lot of their life outcomes. How can students feel empowered that they're ready to do this instead of, or in addition to, the fear of that responsibility?
Sure, that's a great question, because a lot of students really, I think there is an intimidation factor when you're faced with a large, complicated, inelegant problem that does not align, particularly well to the legal doctrine as you read it in the casebook. One thing I will say that I think all of our programs do a really good job of focusing on that is really important is sort of the notion of teaching for transferability. So we're not just teaching you how to read this case and extract the legal principle from it. We're teaching you how to investigate an area of law, right? How to determine what's relevant, how to access. There's a lot of resources out there, right? You will drown in the sheer volume of resources if you don't have the skill to navigate it astutely. And so that's one big part that I know I always teach in my clinic is how do we do transactional legal research effectively, right? How do we avoid sort of just drowning in the sheer volume of information that exists in the world that may or may not have particular relevance, but can definitely sort of send you down a rabbit hole. So we take sort of a strategic and problem-oriented approach to helping students navigate these questions in a way that's going to lead them sort of in a meaningful meaningful direction. And it's not, as JB said, it's not just about sort of swallowing books. And one of the things that we talk about in terms of accessing and sort of navigating resources that are available is how to lean on the expertise of people who have already cultivated it, right? How to use the expertise of your other faculty members as a resource. How to use your supervisor's knowledge as a resource. At what point do you sort of say, okay, this is maybe stretching my scope of expertise a little too far, and I'm going to draw a line and make a referral, right? We talk about all of these things in clinic, and we approach it sort of in a methodical way that we hope is going to be transferable to other legal settings. So I don't expect that every student that comes through my clinic is going to do the type of work that I do. There are not that many lawyers that work on worker cooperatives, right? But the idea, or the various other sort of unique problems that we tackle in the clinical setting. But the notion is that we're equipping them with these transferable skills that they can then go and apply in other settings. It's a major, major facet of the way that we teach.
If I can quickly add to that, when I started practice, what I found was that law school had given me a false sense of security. As JB said, we never got the courses that would give us a sense of what the experience of being a practicing lawyer and standing up for a client or interacting with a client or interviewing a client really felt like. And it was terrifying. It was exhausting emotionally to have to deal with it every day and learn learn the skills fresh when you get into a very high pressure work environment. And I would have loved the chance, not just to learn the skills, but to learn the feeling of what it felt like the first time when you do a practical exercise, so that when I got to the workplace, I would not have felt so intimidated and afraid and bewildered and nervous by the whole experience. So I think one of the great aspects of what Lauren is discussing is that it teaches you to perform. It gives you the practice to understand what the lived experience is like, but in a controlled and protected setting. Unlike in the law firm or in a public interest job or whatever, when you're more by yourself and you're very responsible and your job is on the line, in our setting, it's safe, right? So you can learn, you can ask questions, you are supported. And so you're able to give yourself the exposure to what it feels like, but within an environment which is more inoculated. And obviously, when you get to your workplace, hopefully that means that you have a sense of what's to come that is much more realistic than many of us had when we went into the workplace for the first time.
I'll just build on that theme as well, Chris, if I can. So yes, you'll show up at law school, and unless you had a family of lawyers and you talked about statute of limitations around the dinner table, there are going to be lots of concepts and ideas flying around that you don't know about, and that's okay. I emphasize that with my first year students. It's okay that you don't know much about the law. We expect that. Don't feel bewildered or embarrassed by that. My wife used to teach first grade, and they don't care that they don't know. So if you ask a first grader, what's a statute of limitations, they'd say, I don't know, but they wouldn't be embarrassed by that. So don't worry about that. The whole point is you will build knowledge. And at the end of the semester, I tell my first year students, you now know more about how our society works. I mean, law is the rules of society. You now know more about how it works than 99.5% of Americans, right? I mean, this is empowering. So just give it time. Don't worry. But as Yesha says, make sure that when you are walking out the door, walking down graduation, you've equipped yourself more than just swallowing books, but to, as much as you can, know or have a sense of how you are going to go practice law.
One of the themes that I think I've heard here, and then we can wrap up, is to make sure that you're proactive in navigating your way through law school. That is, a good law school will offer you a lot of opportunities, a lot of exciting opportunities. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to take advantage of them. and to think about your time in law school as a way to really expose yourself to as many of these opportunities as possible. It's an exciting time. I'm excited for you all embarking on this journey. I'd like to thank my colleagues for joining me here today. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts about law school. Our hope is that this has been helpful to you, not just in choosing where to go to law school, but then in thinking about how to navigate law school once you're there. But we very much hope to see you here at Vanderbilt in the fall. Thank you very much.